God, it's been 84 years. But welcome back to Notepad's Little Classroom, a series where I talk about game design and occasionally have a good point about it. You may have heard that noise before, though, that classical ding. You've leveled up. TTRPGs have always had this reoccurring meme about EXP or experience points, but it may be changed to things such as insight, discipline, souls, or whatever you can want to call the titular advancement points. It's an unconscious creation in most games, the idea that after X amount of time, you will get Y new toy to play with. After 1000 XP, we're now level 2. After we gather 10 souls, we can buy a new skill. After the session, we get a new ability on our character sheet, and so on and so forth. But when you're making a TTRPG, there's a moment when you're wondering what you want to do. How do our brave heroes become braver and more hero-y? I'm not going to tell you some exact numbers and calculations, pulling out my math book and saying, well, this is the exact one. This is how you find the exact percentage of playtime to stuff time. What I can give you is a rundown on various methods of advancing and their benefits. In general, you can break these down into 4 types: threshold, pool, gradual, and gear. To represent our examples here, I'm going to be using our totally original role-playing game, Tombs and Terrors, a fantasy role-playing game about going into the dark depths of the shadow-bad, dark, scary town and killing everything for fun and profit. It's going to be a 2d8 system because fuck you, I'm going to spite God and make sure none of you get to have fun. You already know about threshold advancement. It's the advancement system used in pretty much everything. The entire idea is simple. Build up amount of X points, you reach a threshold, and you level up. This may be a set threshold. After 100 XP, you will always gain a level, but it's just harder to get those points later on. Or it may be a scaling threshold, where you have to follow a chart like this to represent it more and more difficult to reach the next tier. Now, I could wax about how it works, but I won't, because you already know. What I can do is talk about its advantages. Namely, it's the most common system in the world, and explaining it takes 5 seconds. When you get X points, your numbers get better. Wowzers, took me 2 seconds to explain it. It also allows you to control the increments of powers that characters are going to be getting. If you know every character will get a super move at level 5, then controlling how quickly they reach level 5 will be its own advantage. Controlling those numbers, controlling the 1s and 2s that you find along the way to track as well. But this is also its greatest problem. Writing a threshold system is demanding you understand the experience point economy as well. Break, for all its issues, says that roughly 1 hour of play is 1 XP. Pretty easy to understand, but then you're also going to have to possibly have fun calculating the challenge rating of 2 VROC at level 7 PF2E party and the subsequent XP they grant the players. Grant too much XP and the players are now flush with power very quickly. They rocket through the ranks and the middle levels feel pointless. You're either a 0 or you are a hero, so why bother with okay enough? Give too little XP and players are suddenly annoyed that the next time you get any new toys to play with, it's 10 or so sessions later. And I call them toys for a very particular reason. The fun of getting something new is pleasant. A second attack, a new ability, a special note, all of these things influence a player's choices. It also gives them a big juicy freaking carrot to work toward the next toy. Threshold systems need to manage that drip feed of power without giving too much or too little away. They also need to make sure that each one of those thresholds feels like there's a reward at the end of it. No one likes a dead level where you don't really get anything out of it, you just have to wait till you get on the treadmill to the next one. In Tombs and Terrors, we're using the classic threshold system, gold as experience points, while a more detailed way is that we're trying to haul as much out of the nightmare dungeon as we can. We don't get XP from killing things. We get by how much we're able to extract and the risk associated with it. Leveling is in a variable interval that resets 500, 1000, 1500, but our would-be tomb robbers get more numbers to make it easier to make it out of the dungeon each time. Every level is a +1 to their particular class actions and more toys. Fighters get more attacks, thieves get more skills, wizards get more spells. The more things they accomplish, the more abilities they get. Particularly really good hauls may result in more levels at once, but it's a high risk, high reward kind of game, lethal consequences for those none prepared. However, we also always have a reward at the end, whether it's just raw money or it's a new toy to play with. pool experience is a bit more chaotic. Rather than reaching X points to get Y, you're instead hoarding a particular resource to spend on improving yourself. Let's start off with a pretty classic example. In Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, you have 200 XP. You can spend it immediately or wait on it and purchase those new skills and talents later. Later on, you have 2,000 experience and you actually haven't changed at all. The pool system of advancement is letting players pick and choose what they want to spend their points on and improve themselves. Let's take Albert and Barry. Albert wants to be a fighter, Barry wants to be a sneaky little thief. Albert will assign his pool to things such as strength, endurance, weapon training, while Barry is assigning it to agility, skills, and a few quirks to play with. Easy enough to understand, but if Albert wanted a few skills or Barry wanted some magic, they aren't restricted or unable to. They just have to spend their pool to get what they want. Now, you can break these down into two other categories of open or guided pools. In open pools, the entire character is one big set of options for you to purchase. Attributes, skills, abilities, talents, who cares? Spend your pool and get in any direction of your choice. This does lead to analysis paralysis at the worst of times, as there are hundreds of thousands of options to play with potentially, and you'll end up with builds to optimize the fun out of the game potentially. Guided pools are giving you a set of options to spend your pool on more precisely. Warhammer Fantasy, with its career system, is only allowing you to buy talents and skills inside of your current career. So your dung farmer can't become an expert doctor within the hour. This may feel restrictive, but sometimes guide rails help players more than hinder their creativity. Tombs and Terrors, of course, is going to use an open pool method. You are dropped in the front of the Tomb of Ultimate Nightmares outside of Scary Town and are expected to develop yourself as you see fit. Every development point you can get is immediately invested into your character in some manner, but the more you hoard, the better the rewards will be. Mostly when you can start spending your development however you want to. Desperately want to learn how to use a longsword better? Spend some development. Need a bit more health to survive this lethal trap? Spend a bit of development. Want to succeed at a skill check but you're a little bit too bad at everything? Well, guess what? Spend some development. The goal is to foster a sense of natural progression, of deliberate training and desperate knacks picked up through their delve into the dungeon. You can burn all your development right away and get incremental little bonuses, or you can really hoard it up and get those really big bonuses when you really need them. Gradual advancement is a bit more complicated to talk about, but here's the 411. It's not strictly numerical as the pool or threshold system are. They are handed out by doing things. Let's further break these down to what may feel a little bit more familiar. Gradual milestones and gradual actions. Gradual milestones are probably one of the most common methods of advancement out there. It's, you completed the adventure, you level up. Congrats, you beat the dungeon, you level up. The game master just declares that you are now level 2 or level 3 or whatever. Now your numbers increase. This is really simple to implement, if introducing some unique complications. Usually milestones are handed out at the end of a story beat, such as an important event or some kind of arbitrary goal set by the players or GM. Did you shoot and kill Drazkill Von Bad Guy? That's a milestone. Save the village of Martian Haven? That's a milestone. Survive the encounter with the Demiurge? It's milestone o'clock. But these systems are heavily dependent on the GM and their pace, meaning that a lot of content may not be ideal for a GM who can just say, nah, that's it. Similarly enough, if you don't add enough content, the GM may feed through the entirety of your system and then realize he can't give it any more points out to anybody. On the other hand, you have the gradual action advancement. You may know this one is a bit better from a little known game called Call of Cthulhu. Gradual action is all about building up skills after they are used. Therefore, if we're running down the streets of Tokyo from a shaga, then oh no, we're going to have to bust it down samurai style to beat that elder horror to death. Well, good news. If we succeed, then Kazuma Lovecraft and his funny cat will mark his performance skill. At the end of the session, he'll roll, and if he fails that check, it'll actually go up a little bit. Gradual action is all about increasing the effectiveness of skills that are being used. In the best case scenario, characters feel like they're getting better at things they are doing rather than killing 20 goblins and becoming better at lockpicking. In the worst case scenarios, By the end of the campaign, the party ends up averaged out of what skills are being called for most frequently. If everyone's doing high hardcore combat, everyone's going to start looking like Duke Nukem by the end of it. Tombs and Terrors uses an ancient style of gradual action advancement. Our base attributes may never change, but our adventuring skills and combat abilities will be gradually improving with use as we plunge deeper and deeper into the darkness that with vague promises of gold and glory. If we use gradual milestones, however, the GM may declare that cleaning a floor constitutes a level up. It may be decided that clearing a dungeon is a level up. You may notice the power increases can be pretty drastically different, as level 2 adventuring party may have cleared 2 floors of a 4-floor tomb, or 2 entire dungeons of 10 floors each. Gear. This is a little bit more esoteric, but gear advancement is the brazenly strange method of doing things. I originally called this dosh advancement or gacha advancement, but the gear is a good compromise. The idea is simple. Characters develop not with levels or stat ups, but by what gear they have to work with. Certain games, such as Chrome Strike, rely entirely on acquiring money to improve your abilities. Everything you do is about the acquisition or development of your stuff over your raw abilities. You need to get money to get better at things. Games focusing on vehicles or exteriors do best with this method, as this GM simply needs to worry about the amount of loot actually being distributed to the players. However, you can play with this method quite a bit. Necronica, our favorite Necrololicon RPG, is all about the acquisition of gear, even if that gear are body parts and other horrors strapped haphazardly to your body. The concept of gear is variable. The execution, though, is that your stuff defines who you are and what you can do. Even the acquisition doesn't necessarily have to be bought and paid for using the power of capitalism, but finding new loot to improve your abilities may be the be-all end-all. I'll cite an obscure 3DS title named Crimson Shroud, where there are no levels or stats really outside of your equipment, each part contributing your ability to fight and survive. Gear advancement is tricky, as you need, unsurprisingly, a lot of gear. A weird amount of gear. You will spend hours poring over spreadsheets seeking gearvana as you realize all too quickly that we're never going to make it out of the cycle of stuff Sura. Tombs and Terror is a gear advancement game, takes a bit more in the vein of Crimson Shroud. The loot, the stuff, the items we acquire boost our abilities across the board, forcing us to debate what's the best option for us to invest time, our money into, and what we are willing to give up for a new piece of gear with better but very different stats tied to it. Every time we venture out of our Diablo 2 looking ass is decked out in whatever we can scrounge up or what we decide to plunder more ancient crypts for. We might find ancient awesome gear, but well, we can pawn that off. It's effectively Pawn Stars, the dungeoneering game. And that's it for advancement. Whether you're designing your game, figuring out how a character is going to go from scrub to hero of the day may seem pretty daunting, but knowing when to be loose and when to tighten development is a tricky one to master. Other times, you're just going to have to kind of wing it when necessary. But when in doubt, always remember these words. People like stuff. People like to have fun. People will always follow a carrot that looks juicier than the one they just ate. My name is Notepad Addon, and this was A Little Classroom. If you like what I do here, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Many thanks to the plutocrats as always. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask. Godspeed, good luck, and have a lovely rest of the day.